Hello, Child Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest, and she has an inspiring story for you. She suffered from multiple diagnoses and all the side effects of the medication for 25 years before she was able to discover her true health, and she transformed her life. And I can't wait for you to hear her story. What I want to let you know is that we talk a lot about her story because it gives so many people hope, and I think there's a lot to learn here. We also talk about the Institute for Integrative Nutrition because that is part of her journey, and it was also really cool to hear the behind the scenes for her and what's going on at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So if you're interested in health coaching or what that career even looks like, you're going to love today's show. If you're interested in hearing the story of a woman who suffered from PCOS, from prediabetes and hair loss and PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and a host of other mental and emotional health issues, and how she transformed her life from those, then you will definitely love today's show. Please share this episode with a friend that needs to see that there's hope at the light of there's hope at the end of the tunnel, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, because it's in hearing that other people who have suffered and who have triumphed, especially around health, and health is the waters are so muddy at times that we're really grasping at straws and we're trying new things, and maybe you feel like you're taking 2 steps forward and 4 steps back, but at least you're moving in a direction and learning, especially from these interviews. And when we can learn from a woman who suffered for many, many years and then was able to detox from all the drugs and actually heal her body to the point where she no longer has these diagnoses, these disorders, they're totally gone. It's such a beautiful story of hope to know that we can triumph and the body really can heal, especially when we look to holistic medicine to support the body in its own healing journey. I do love that she allows us to see deep into what it would look like to be a health coach and how the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, how it functions as an entity, as a business. It's really cool to see that. Just like I love seeing the difference, for example, from Walmart versus Costco. Costco, infinitely a more ethical company when it comes to the treatment of their employees, for example, comparatively to Walmart, and how it's just a totally different mindset around business. And so to see that there's the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, the world's largest health coach training program provider, that they really practice what they preach and they treat their employees in a way that we would really love to see every company treat their employees. So sit back, enjoy today's show. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you so much for sharing this information with those you love so that we can help as many people as possible. Now, as you're listening, if you start thinking that you'd like to become a health coach, you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach, and you'll be able to get some free information that's really cool. You actually get a whole module of their training program for free. Try it out. See if it resonates with you. And if you want to give them a call, you can Google IIN or the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and give them a call. You can talk to some amazing people that work there. Most of them are also health coaches. Most of them have taken the program, and so they can really answer your questions. I graduated from the program last year, and it was life-changing, and I'm so thrilled I did it. I know that many of the listeners have gone on to join IIN and take their program just from listening to this show. So if it's something that interests you, make sure that you mention the Learn True Health podcast when you do get on the phone with them, because I negotiated a special discount for all my listeners. So it's a quite substantial discount, and that's because I told them I'm going to send you guys a lot of people, so give my listeners the best deal possible. So they definitely will. And if you have any questions for me about going through the program, I'd love to answer them. I'd love to mentor you if you're going to go through the program and become a health coach yourself. You can always email me, ashley@learntruehealth.com. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being a listener, and definitely, I know you will, enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 252. Well, I am very excited for today's guest. We have with us Doris Dahdouh. She has her master's degree in social work and a certificate from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition as an integrative nutrition health coach. But that's not what's exciting about Doris. What's exciting for me, at least, is Doris also works, not only does she work as an amazing health coach, she also works in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And what I love about that is today we're going to learn about Doris, we're going to learn about health coaching, we're going to learn about her story, which she has an amazing story. And we're going to pull back the curtain a bit and look at the inner workings of the IIN, which I love so much, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I graduated from their program last year, their year-long health coach training program. And it's sort of like when you go to a concert and you get a backstage pass, or maybe when you love a movie like Star Wars, and then you get to watch the behind the scenes, the making of Star Wars. And that can be just as thrilling. Well, today we have Doris to answer our questions and to show us about what it's like to work at IIN and what it's like to be a health coach, also helping other people become health coaches. So Doris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, first, I'd love for you to start by sharing your story because, like many of our listeners, you have had a lot of health issues that you've struggled with that led you towards wanting to help other people gain their health back. And I think that by hearing your story, we can all resonate with what you've gone through and what you've dedicated your life to accomplishing now.
Yes, you are correct there. It's a little bit of a long story, so I'll try to condense it as much as possible. But it really started off with me always having the heart to help people, and I ended up in the social work field. I did that for a good 12 years, actually. And I started off in a community working with teens in crisis, children, foster families, and people who were rehabilitating back into the community as previously being in the jail system. So I had a lot of experience with different types of people with different problems. And then I moved into the school field. So I was working as a school social worker for a good 8 years of those 12 years. And I was progressively getting sick. No one knew what was wrong with me, and I always got sick around the time that my period was coming along. So it would start, I would say, maybe 2.5 weeks before my period. So I really only had like a half a week or a week and a half of just being, if you want to say, quote unquote, normal. So these symptoms would come up, and they varied. So it started from, emotional stuff where I was overly upset to the point of depression. And then there were times when I was so angry that little things would just throw me off the handle. I would be very upset, and I couldn't control these feelings. And then there was the physical feelings that were the symptoms, excuse me, that were coming. And those symptoms included from bloating to heartburn to having joint pain to feeling really nauseous. Honestly, there was more. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've had these symptoms, and I'm happy to say that with a smile on my face, that I can't remember, them fully.
Mm-hmm.
But it basically threw me into a place, Ashley, where I really couldn't function, and I got progressively worse. I started to feel this at the age of 19. I'm currently 40, so it was from 19 to about the age of, I would say, 36 that I was
Mm-hmm.
having these problems.
Mm.
So I would go to doctors, and they didn't know how to help me. They were dealing with the mental health symptoms. So I was on, antidepressive
Oh.
medication. Yeah, I was on anti-anxiety medication, and then I went to see a gynecologist who said, I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. So she
Mm-hmm.
was seeing some of the symptoms from there because I was overweight at the time. I was pre-diabetic, and I had some other like symptoms where, I was hair was thinning in other areas, over my head, or my head hair was thinning, but I was growing hair in other areas that shouldn't be there. So she had said that, but I was like, this is not the only problem. Long story short, I was actually in graduate school when that happened, when it was starting to get progressively worse. So I was in my pathology class, and I was looking at the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Illness. And at the time, I was reading through depressive disorders. And under depressive disorders, NOS, there was this little tiny section for PMDD, which is known as premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And currently, actually, PMDD has its own like code, so they've recognized it. But at that time, nobody really knew what it was, and I had to educate some of the doctors about it, but still, they would not take me seriously. So they
Wow.
were just, yeah, they were just dealing with the mental health stuff. Ashley, it was really frustrating because there wasn't any cure or there wasn't any hope. So I thought, you know what I mean? And then fast forward it, I lived my life where I was on and off. This was my life. I had a time where I was functional and a time when I wasn't. There are lots of times when I was, canceling on people, rescheduling, because I was either too ill or too depressed to meet with them. And this was constant. Honestly, when I look back, I don't know how I'm still here. It was just too much. And then I ended up I was working in a middle school as a school social worker. And the one thing that was interesting, that every time the psychiatrist, because I was seeing the psychiatrist, would put me on antidepressants or something, for my mental health issues, it wouldn't last. So it's like the medication would go into full gear. I'd be okay where I'd manage it for a little bit, but then I'd have to switch. And whenever I had to switch, I'd have to go on leave because that medication is very strong for the body, and the body is trying to adjust to it. So you will have a reaction. It might be a positive one. And then after a while, because you're not dealing with the foundation of the issues, you end up, basically slipping into the same issue. And that's really what happened to me. It was maybe my third time that I was going on my leave now. And I forgot to mention, when I was seeing the gynecologist, they also put me on birth control. They put me on thyroid medication, and they put me on a pre-diabetic medication so that I would not get diabetes. So I was on all of that along with the antidepressants and the anti-anxiety
Oh my
medication.
gosh.
Yes, and I was on that for a while. So it was
Oh,
this was my life, Ashley, and no one really sat me down and told me what the symptoms were or that they could make me worse or anything like that.
you mean the
It
symptoms of
was
the side effects of the drugs, or the symptoms of PMDD?
the symptoms of the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was what I was dealing with, and I just thought it was a way of life, and that's really how I lived my life. Anyway, the last time I ended up, at the school and I went on leave because I had to switch medication again, I was uncontrollably crying. I was
Oh,
unable to go to work. It was really, honestly, very sad to watch me, especially when I was the person who was helping all these people,
were you was this uncontrollable crying? Was that another side effect of being put on another drug, or was that because the antidepressants stopped working again?
I believe it was a combination of both,
Mm-hmm.
along with the PMDD because it wasn't being solved. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a combination of all of that. And then there was that hopeless feeling because no one
Mm-hmm.
could help me, so it was really very sad. I remember calling into work and saying I can't come in. I went to see my doctor and she put me on leave for a few months. We switched my medication. I start to feel a little better, and I say that quote unquote. and then I return. Mind you, 2 or 3 weeks later, I was getting depressed again. So I go back to the doctor. She's not there. There's another doctor. They put her in a hospital, and you couldn't reach her. So I had to see a new doctor who didn't know my case. So he puts me on another antidepressant. So now I'm on two antidepressants at the
Oh
same
my
time.
gosh.
Yes. And then I am on the anti-anxiety medication so I could sleep, by the way, because insomnia is a huge part of PMDD. So I could be up all night not sleeping and be with that being exhausted because my bones are achy, and it's a terrible thing to have. Anyway, so I return back to work. I go back on this medication. It starts to help a little bit. I'm feeling good. But this was my tenure year, meaning in the US, you have, when you work in a public school, you work for 3 years. And after the third year, you can get tenure, meaning your job can be secure. So this was my tenure year. So I was called by the human resources, and they had basically said that they have concerns about renewing my contract for the tenure year. So they wanted to send me for an evaluation, basically to see if I was fit for duty. And I said, but I was out because I was ill. He said the Board of Education doesn't really look at that. They just look the amount of days you were out. So if you just go to this evaluation, it should be fine. I said, okay, fine, I'll go. I'm not going to argue with them. I'll go. It was a full day of evaluations. I found out later this is where they send like cops and firefighters, people that like work in high stress situations. They put them on these evaluations to see if these people are okay to do these type of jobs. So I do the evaluation. I go home. I come back. I just, I'm doing my work and I'm working with the kids and doing what I do. And then I believe it was maybe a month later when the human resources came to my office. And may I speak with you? He said. I said, okay. We sat down and he basically looked at me with kind of like, I would say, some sadness. So I said to him, you're here about the evaluation. And he said, yes. So basically, he said I was found unfit for duty. I said,
Wow.
yes. And I said, really? And I looked at him and I said, are you telling me I'm disabled? And then he's like, I'm so sorry, Doris. I have a sister who has issues too, and she works in a school. And I just recommend that you go to your union representative to see if they can help you. And I said, okay. He left, and then he calls me and he says, we need you to come over here with the lawyer. We have to have a conversation. You can bring your union rep. Okay, so we sit there. They basically told me that I had to leave right away from the school. Mind you, I was like
Wow.
in shock. Yeah, I'm looking at them and I'm like, are you kidding? They're like, no. And they both looked pretty sad. They were looking at me and they said, when you're found unfit for duty, we basically cannot have you return. And I was the eighth grade social worker at the time, so the kids were expecting me at graduation. Mind you, graduation was a week later. It was at the end of the school year. And I said,
Oh.
yeah, yeah. Basically, Ashley, I loved those kids so, so much. And I said, what about graduation? That was my response. It wasn't, what about me? What about my work? What am I going to do? What about the kids? And they said, well, I don't know. I said, and they started talking a little more. And at this point, they sounded like, I would say, wind. I wasn't really listening to the words, so I just looked at them again, and I said it with more authority and sadness, and with tears in my eyes, and my throat was cracking. I said, "What about the kids? They're expecting me for graduation." So they looked at each other, and they're just like, all right, I don't see a problem for you to show up for graduation. So after they said that, I said, okay, now I'm here to listen to what you have to say. So they continued to say, what they needed to say. They were actually quite nice in helping me to um, to leave with a little bit of room for me to leave with, I would say, some kind of severance package. It's not really, schools don't really give that, but it helped me a little bit. So after this, I would have to say, is when my transformation began. This summer, that was the summer that a friend of mine had given me like a yoga card, so I can go to yoga classes, because she didn't know what
How
to
old were
say to
you at the
me.
time?
I was 35,
Okay,
uh,
wow.
30, 35, 36.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so the year before I was, yeah. So I was 36. I had just turned 36. That's right. This
Okay.
happened the day after my birthday. When I think about it, yeah. So I was 36 at the time,
And you had been
and
for 25 years suffering from PMDD and then
PCOS.
and PCOS. But
Yes.
I think I don't know. You can tell me.
Hmm.
Did you feel like if you took the symptoms of PCOS and the symptoms of PMDD and put it on like one side of a scale, and then you
Hmm.
took all the side effects of all
Hmm.
the drugs they had you on and put it on the other side of the scale,
Hmm.
which one was like, do you feel like you could say, oh yeah, absolutely, the drugs did more harm than good, or did they make you feel like crazy, or do you feel like the drugs were helping? Because you'd been on
Hmm.
this journey for 25 years, and
Right. Right.
multiple medications to try to
Right.
mask and manage symptoms.
Right. Right. That's a good question. Really, when I think about it, my instinct response is that it was intertwined. I can't put one on one side or one on the other,
Mm-hmm.
because it was just, you become like this victim to your quote unquote illness and your quote unquote like your drug sentence. That's really what happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
and
So it's,
and you're
yeah.
and I can understand, like, if you're
Mhm.
suffering, if you're in so much pain, emotionally and physically, that you're willing to do whatever it takes. I know women who have had
Yeah.
hysterectomies,
Yes.
and
That
it's
was a,
like, and that's on the
yeah.
table, and that's, and
Yes.
that comes with so many more side effects,
Yes.
having a hysterectomy. But they just,
Yes.
we when we're in so much pain, we just want it out, we just want it to be done, and we kind of
Absolutely.
lose logic in the
Hmm.
face of pain and in the face of
Hmm.
suffering.
Hmm.
And I know MDs really, like, most of them have a really big heart and they really want to help their patients, but their
Hmm.
toolbox is so limited. They're just looking
Hmm.
to mask and manage symptoms. They're
Right.
not taught to get to the root cause.
Right.
and
Right.
and this is, so for 25 years you were sort of at the mercy of whatever tools the MDs have at their disposal, which is drugs and
Right.
surgery. And the
Right.
drugs, although sometimes help, so, like,
Hmm.
it's not, they're 100% bad, but unfortunately
Right.
every drug also has a toxic side effect. I mean, there's not
Yeah.
one drug on the market that there's like, this drug has zero side effects. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
there's
right.
every drug, even aspirin
Right.
can have could cause irreparable damage to certain
Right.
people. So there you were, 25 years you've been on this roller coaster of
Hmm.
drug after drug after drug,
Hmm.
and you think this would be rock bottom because you've
Hmm.
now been told you are unfit to even be a social worker working with children.
Right.
And yet, you weren't feeling, it doesn't sound like you were feeling sorry for yourself. It sounds like you were taking it all in stride.
Well, I don't know. Honestly, when I think back, there may have been a time where, well, actually, that probably came later, because when I started my transformation, there was a time where I went cold turkey and got off of everything.
Oh,
So,
I want to
yeah,
hear about that. So let's
yes,
back up. So
yes,
the graduation happened, you got to see the
yes,
kids, and your friend
yes,
gave you a card to go to some yoga classes.
yes.
Then what happened?
Well, I just started to, I mean, I was still taking the medication, but I was started to meditate. I started to, introduce yoga poses into my life. And I was really working on my mindset. I was also going to church a lot, and I was praying a lot. So my meditative time was praying, and my yoga time was just letting my body, you know, I would say, really, really benefit from all of the positive results of moving it and stretching it,
Mm.
and letting the toxins out. There are lots of things that I didn't know about till I went to yoga that was really very helpful for me.
Like what?
Well, there were some poses that would help with my mood, which was very interesting. I would go in and tell my yoga teacher I'm feeling a little this way or that way, and she would give me, it was mostly, it was restorative. So she would give me, let's just say a bolster. Yoga people out there know what a bolster is. So it's basic. So it's basically like a pillow that's like a log, and you would there was a way you would hug it and the way you would sit, and then all of these emotions would come out. It was really quite
Mm.
amazing. And then there were certain poses that she would teach me that were for detoxing, a lot of the twists. So a lot of our yoga people, yogis out there know that anything with a twist will let out the toxins. And this was really very helpful. And also to be still, and to be just in that moment is really, really helpful for a person's well-being, because you're not thinking about what ifs. You're not thinking about what happened. You're thinking about, I need to be present right now, and that was really very helpful.
Do you find that your body had to detoxify from all of these drugs and that you kind of experienced another set of side effects of drugs as your body released them and detoxified them?
I did not know any of that before. I mean, when I look back now, I said, yes, absolutely. I mean, I started the yoga. I was in for it after that. This is when I hit rock bottom, because after I did yoga for that whole summer, I was also swimming, I was praying, I was meditating, I was going to church, and I stayed very positive in those areas. And then my yoga teacher had to fly to another country, so I couldn't find another one, and I also no longer could afford my apartment. I had this beautiful apartment overlooking the Manhattan skyline on the Jersey side. It was all these things that I had to give up. And I had to basically pack up, sell my stuff, pack up whatever I could into my car, and drive down to live with my parents. So in this process, though, I started this like Bible study life group in my apartment. Um, and I met some really great people, and one of them was a new person that was to me, and mentioned, he saw this kinesiologist. I was like, what the heck is this? He goes, he really helped me, Doris. I think you should go see him. So I called my father. I mean, I don't have a job at this point. God bless my dad. Honestly, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here either. So I went down there. Kinesiologist didn't take any medication, so it was all out of pocket. The first session was very expensive, and then it was the supplements and all of these things. I went to him, and basically I tested for having issues with my thyroid, which now ding, 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 all the hormone issues I was having, all the weight issues I was having, all of the symptoms I was having from the PCOS and the PMDD. And the other thing that came up was the small colon. Ding, 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 gut health. That's something that we didn't know, that, serotonin, is built there, and that everything that,
Mm-hmm.
that you feel happens in the gut. So there was all these things that were coming up. I wasn't even aware of them at the time. Now, when I look back, I'm like, oh, it all makes sense. Interesting thing too, my heart was something that he was looking at, which is, if you have a lot of thyroid issues, then your heart is going to have an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So there were all of these things that were coming up, and I was overly exhausted. It was funny because I was like, yeah, I'm tired. He goes, no, you don't understand. You're overly exhausted. You're testing for a 100-year-old body. I was 35 or
Oh.
36 at the time. I was 36, excuse me. I was like, what? But at the same time, I looked at this man with stars in my eyes, because finally someone is validating me. Finally,
Mm-hmm.
it was such a blessing. He didn't tell me to get off my medication. He just said, you need these supplements. I decided, and I will say this very clearly, I do not recommend this to anyone out there. Do not go cold turkey when it comes to this medication, because it will have a tremendous.
I'm laughing because I've had like a handful of other people on the show who have
Yes,
the almost, I mean, their version of your story. I had
yes,
one gentleman who he was diagnosed with failure to thrive when he was a child, and
interesting.
he had a bunch of trauma happen to him as a child, but he was put on massive amounts of antidepressants and
Mhm,
antipsychotics and all that stuff. And then his liver started to fail when he was a teenager, and he decided, because he's like, and the doctors were kind of like, uh-oh, your liver's failing, and so
yeah,
he started researching it
yeah,
and going, oh, it's the medications the doctor's been putting me on. And so he went cold turkey, and he said the exact same thing you said. Is like, I did this to save my life, but don't do it. It's so bad. He thought he was gonna die. He was just like, it was like detoxing from heroin. It was kind
Yeah.
of like on that level.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you went cold turkey off. Let me see. Thyroid medication,
Yes.
anti-anxiety medication,
Yes.
sleeping medication, antidepressants, anything else?
Yeah, the birth control.
And birth control. So five
Yes.
medications.
And the pre-diabetic medication
Oh,
too.
6 medications.
Yes.
You went cold
Yes.
turkey all at once.
Yes.
What?
It was not smart on my part, I'll just tell you. And I want everyone out there to know
But
that was
I
not
think
smart.
you were listening to your gut. You were listening to your instincts, and so what happened? What happened next?
Ashley, I was desperate. That's all I have to say. I
Mm.
was desperate. People basically were telling me I am unfit for duty. They're telling me I'm disabled. Mind you, I couldn't get unemployment because one of the questions on the unemployment was, "Are you disabled?" So I clicked yes because that's what this report is telling me.
Oh no.
And then to this day, I have not been able to find a doctor because my doctor, like I told you, they shipped her off somewhere. I couldn't get with her. So I was seeing different doctors who would not verify my story. So I didn't get anything from the government. It was all my dad. So there was so much outside stress on top of the inside stress that was going on in my body.
Sure.
So yeah, so I was desperate. I said, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to play around. I'm not playing around. And I'm one of those people who's very compliant. If you're going to give me a protocol, in order for me to tell you it doesn't work, I have to follow it. And I follow it to the T. I'm pretty religious about stuff like this. So what happened? Now, to answer that question, it was a year of darkness. That's the best way to describe it. I had to see him every 6 weeks. So I was driving because this doctor was in New Jersey where I lived, and I moved down to my parents. I was going up and down the coast, driving back and forth. I would stay with some friends in Jersey, and then there was this time. So this happened around November, and around July, I'll never forget it, was a time when I decided that I wanted to end it all. I had decided it. I was tired of waking up with such anxiety and darkness and hopelessness. I was tired of it. And then I had this feeling of peace, which, by the way, a lot of suicidal people end up feeling peace because they've made that decision. They're like, there's going to be no more pain. You also reconcile with yourself that your loved ones will be okay because they'll get over it. Everyone gets over tragedy. Stuff like that makes me want to tear.
Yeah,
Because,
and there's also peace because
yeah,
you stop imagining a future in which there's pain.
right.
Because
Exactly.
anxiety is a fear of a bad future, a
Mm-hmm.
fear of bad things happening to us in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And what many people don't know, is that your body listens to every thought you have. Like, you and I could sit here and we could actually trigger our adrenaline to go
Mm-hmm.
up. We could we could talk about zombies attacking us, or bombs
Right.
going off, or something
Right.
really negative, like being
Right.
gunned down, like something really negative. And
Mm-hmm.
my heart's starting to race just mentioning those things,
Mm-hmm.
because our body, our autonomic nervous system, is
Mm-hmm.
constantly listening to every thought we have. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I imagine a tomorrow in which there's pain in my life, then my body thinks that I need to go into survival mode now, because
Mm-hmm.
it's, even though it's just a thought of an imaginary future. If you've had 25 years of suffering,
Mm-hmm.
then your brain goes, well, it's 100% forecast that tomorrow I'll also have suffering, right? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
been 25 years. It's kind of like, for your brain, it's like you've proven to yourself that tomorrow and the next year and the next year and the next year are going to have
Mm-hmm.
suffering, because the last 25 have suffering. And so
Right.
your body takes that as, okay, I'm in suffering mode, and then that creates an anxiety around your
Right.
future. And so the second you go, I'm going to end my life, you're now imagining a future which doesn't have any pain,
Right.
because maybe you believe there's going to be nothing. Who knows, right? But when you tell your body that, now all of a sudden it can relax, and now there's that peace, because it goes, okay, finally I'm breaking the cycle. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously we don't want suicide to be the thing that breaks the cycle,
Right,
but if you can imagine a future in which there's peace and health, and do that every day, that could create the same amount of peace. That could
right,
create that same peace, because the peace comes from you telling your body the pain's no longer going to be there in my future. It's not going to be there
right,
tomorrow.
right.
I'm so glad you didn't go through with it.
Yeah, there's definitely a story that comes with that.
Did you want to go in and tell a bit about your story about the suicide?
Yes, I think it's really important because there's a lot of people suffering with this kind of thing, feeling there's no
Mm.
hope. So yeah.
Okay, so tell us a bit about that. And I agree with you. I think that there's I would love that if what you share, where you're about to share, touches lives and saves lives right now. So absolutely, please share with us that aspect of your story.
Sure, absolutely. Of course, there's a lot of emotion surrounded around that story because I think about the person I was. I almost see myself from a different, like an outside person, and all I want to do is grab that person and say, it's going to be okay. But luckily, I did have that, but I wasn't really clear, and in my mind thoughts and all of the things that were surrounding me. Anyway, so I had decided I was going to do this. Mind you, I was still on my protocol. I had gone off cold turkey from November to July off of the psychotropic medications, but was on all of these supplements, all natural, everything. And I was on this in July, and I said, I'm going to take a lot of pain. I had pain medication, by the way. That was something I took as needed. So that's how I was going to do it. I had a plan. I was going to take care of it that way. And something told me to to just not do it. I am a believer. I'm a Christian. I'm a church goer. I had mentioned that earlier. So I'm not crazy. I didn't hear an actual someone tell me to just wait, but it was like this strong feeling from the Holy Spirit that told me just wait a little bit. It was just that. And that was something that said to me, okay, there was nothing else that came along with this strong feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
I gave my father a call and I told him what had happened. My father and I were very close, as I'd mentioned. Thank God for him. I wouldn't be here for one from him because I was in Jersey at this happened, so I wasn't with them in Florida at this time. So my father's response was, "Don't do anything, just call me. Just don't do anything, just call me. Don't think about anything, just call me if that happens." So I said to my dad, okay. And then the very next few hours to the next day, I don't remember exactly, I said to myself, you said you were going to do this protocol fully. So do it fully, even with this pain, even with the darkness. So at this point, the heaviness came back. You remember how I told you it was peaceful because I had decided that I
Yeah.
was going to end it? So the heaviness came back, but there was a glimpse of hope that I cannot really describe. I mean, I don't know um, who's listening or where their hope comes from, but my hope came from the Holy Spirit and my Father, and I just was like, I'm just going to push. And I just kept pushing. And then I said, I'll just keep taking my supplements. Um, and to this day, when I look back, it's really inexplicable what happened and how I'm still here. But I'm glad it happened the way it happened. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be, where I am, and I wouldn't be able to, you know, um, help people, the way I am in a different way. As I told you, I always helped them as a social worker, but there was that element of health that was missing. And I see this now. I wish that there's more nutrition and health speaking classes, like in graduate school for those who want to be counselors too, because a lot of mental health is really associated with people's reactions to food or
Mm-hmm.
intolerances to food,
Mm-hmm.
and I just see that because of what I went through, I'm able to see things a little differently, and I'm able to also help people see things a little differently. And I continued, Ashley, on the protocol. So this was July. By the time I
Just
went to see him,
just to
go ahead. I'm sorry.
clarify the
Yeah.
protocol, I know you
Mhm.
mentioned so the protocol by the kinesiologist was supplements, and you decided to go cold turkey off your now 7 medications because you mentioned pain medication.
Yes. Yes.
Um, did he also help you adjust your diet, or were you still eating the same way you had always been eating?
He did not, but I was doing some reading myself on organic foods and gluten-free foods. So I'd failed to mention that part, and my apologies. But I was doing some readings on that and how gluten causes inflammation, foggy brain, and depressive symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading on organic foods because GMOs would really mess up with the hormones of a person. So these were things that I was reading on, so I was doing that, and I was very uh, very strict on that. I brought my food wherever I went, driving up and down the coast, to my parents and then up to Jersey. I was very, very good with that. And I started to see changes. They were slight because I'm still detoxing from all of these, these psychotropic medications and the
Mm-hmm.
pain medicine and all of that. But it was not until October um, that I would say October, yeah, I was having little to no symptoms. It was insane, you know.
October,
Yeah,
by October you had, so wait, when did you see the kinesiologist?
it was the November before, so it took a
Okay,
full
so
11 months.
11 months later,
Hmm.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
You, what was it? So what was your life like then in that October of versus, the previous year?
right,
You were able to fall asleep, you didn't have sleep problems, your blood sugar was normal, your thyroid was functioning.
right.
Did you have any symptoms during your monthly cycle?
I didn't. That's where the little to no symptoms were coming. It was really insane because I always started to feel the symptoms around
Mm-hmm.
ovulation time or a little before ovulation time. And it was getting to the point where it's like, oh, my period's here? It was shocking. It was shocking.
Amazing. I love it. So
Yeah.
just to clarify, 25 years of suffering
Yes.
from the symptoms of PCOS and the symptoms of PMDD.
Yes.
And then on top of that, multiple medications
Hmm.
to help manage those symptoms, which then the medications themselves have a host of side effects, which are new
Right.
symptoms to deal with. So
Yes.
25 years plus, now your body is filled with these toxins that it needs to
Hmm.
handle as well. So
Hmm.
25 years of that, 11 months of yoga, meditation, prayer, shifting your diet so you've removed
Yes.
foods that were causing gut inflammation, that were causing because there's a huge correlation, like you said, between the gut health and the brain health, and so you were
Yes.
looking to heal that. You were
Hmm.
avoiding foods that weren't organic and non-GMO, so you were eating organic and
Hmm.
non-GMO foods that were gluten
Hmm.
free.
Hmm.
And you were taking some supplements.
Yes.
Where I definitely want to ask you about the supplements. So, but
Yeah.
all of that combined, because you can't out supplement a bad. I believe in supplements, but you can't out supplement a bad diet. You can't go to eat a
Right.
McDonald's and then take some vitamins and think you're
Right.
okay.
Right.
But supplements are just that. Where
Right.
it's to just help take us to the next level. But
Right.
the majority of it really needs to be in our diet because,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, good. So you did all that, and 11 months later, it was a new you.
It was. I can't deny the fact, though, I was still a little anxious, but that's
Hmm.
because I had no job. I didn't know what my future looks like.
So probably normal, healthy anxiety, right? Because
Exactly.
yeah, that's it wasn't unwarranted anxiety that was coming out of nowhere in the
Exactly.
middle of the night
Exactly.
from yeah. So you were dealing with a very healthy emotional state.
Yeah.
A quote unquote negative emotions
Yeah.
when they're fully justified are
Yeah.
are healthy. I think we need
Yes.
to. I think we've kind of in our society kind of demonized our negative emotions, but
That's true.
we need to be comfortable with there are times when grief is healthy and we want to grieve healthfully. We want to, but it's okay to have grief and happiness
Yeah.
at the same time. Like
Yeah.
I've lost both my parents and I had to kind of
Sorry
be
to hear that.
thank you, be comfortable with sitting in being happy and being sad at the same time,
Right.
and
Right.
being okay with it. It's
Yeah.
okay because allowing it to flow through us instead of demonizing it or drugging it or
Right.
self-medicating it.
Right.
And so it sounds like that anxiety was warranted because here you are thinking about a future in which there's potential fears in the future you're imagining, and then your body
Right.
reacts in an
Yeah.
anxious way. But obviously you've handled those now. So there you were. Are you 37 at this point?
Yes,
So
I
this,
am.
this is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
living your first time in your adult life, without all these symptoms and without all the
Right.
drugs, and you're feeling healthy for the
Right.
first time in your adult life.
Right. And it's crazy. I actually get my period when I'm supposed to get it. And I don't have these crazy, like, it's like like it's almost like uh you know there's always something that comes before the big event, all of that. So the big event was the period, and all these little things that had to happen so that you knew the big event. It doesn't happen. The big event
Mm-hmm.
comes, you have the normal cramps here and there, but it goes away. It's like a day. I mean, before it was the full 7 days. It's
Yeah.
like, sometimes 10, by the way, Ashley. It's
Yeah.
like really insane. And sometimes I'll look back and I'll just say, did that really happen to me? And then I'll call my dad sometimes, like, Dad, do you remember when? He goes, Doris, I still don't believe it. I still don't believe it, and it's like a miracle in itself that you can look back and say, that was a completely different person
Mm-hmm.
that is standing in front of you right now, and that is really the story. But of course, the diet was very important. I just failed to mention that. I didn't mean to fail to mention that. But no, but it's very true. I did a lot of reading. I was following Dr. Mark Hyman. I was following Dr. Joel Furman. I was watching all the documentaries. I had a friend who introduced juicing to me through Joe Cross.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had, all of these things that were happening. I started following Drew Canoli on Fit Life TV. I was following Dr. Josh Axe on drjockass.com, axe.com, excuse me. And it was just, I was filling myself with all this information, which actually brought me to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I've had Dr. Mark Hyman and Dr. Joel Furman on the show, and
awesome.
I love them. Dr. Furman, I mean, I just want to hug him. I love his information.
Yes.
And I don't know if you know this about me, but I had polycystic ovarian syndrome as well. And
Wow.
I was told when I
Yeah.
was 19 that I'd never have kids. I had
Oh,
type 2 diabetes, I had high blood pressure, I had massive chronic adrenal fatigue. And I went to doctors for years and none of them could help me. And then
right.
finally it was similar to you and like all the documentaries and the books and everything. And
Yeah.
then I rediscovered naturopaths and started
Mhm.
studying with the naturopaths. And I call myself like a naturopathic groupie, but I befriended a lot of them because
Mhm.
I love their philosophy and I love,
Mhm.
who they are. And I actually traveled with and studied with a naturopath. And through implementing supplements and diet changes, I reversed my type 2 diabetes. I reversed
Mhm.
my polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Mhm.
I no longer have high blood pressure, and I have healed so much of my chronic adrenal fatigue.
Mhm.
And I have a 3-year-old now,
That's
and we
great.
conceived totally naturally.
That's
My husband
great.
and I tried for 6 years to get pregnant, and then we integrated this, diet and
Mhm.
supplements, and we got pregnant, and it was so easy. And I weep for those who struggle and struggle and struggle, because I
Mhm.
mean we tried for 6 years, I know. And we kind of had we had accepted the idea that we would maybe never have kids, maybe we would adopt or something.
Mhm.
But it was so once you're on the right path, everything
Mhm.
falls into place. And
Sure.
sometimes it feels like two steps forward, one step back because your
Mhm.
body's detoxing, or,
Right.
it's not, I mean, this is sort of like we're going, I feel sometimes like we're throwing darts in the dark.
Mhm.
Um, but we have to have that willingness
Mhm.
to try different things in
Mhm.
order to see what works and what doesn't work. And we have to have that willingness. Like for me, I'm constantly experimenting with my diet to dial it
Mhm.
in and see what my body's needs are right now. I'm freaking out some of my listeners because I've got some fan mail from some awesome listeners who are kind of freaked out because they're very keto and paleo, and I was really keto and paleo when I started this podcast, and now
Mhm.
I'm more plant-based. And
Mhm.
I'm not 100% of any diet. I'm
Mhm.
more of that flexitarian,
Right.
just playing with and feeling like what's the fuel my body's looking for,
Right.
and that willingness to experiment and try new things, cuz and start questioning, well, why do I eat this way? Like I had a listener write me recently and said that she loved an episode I did with Dr. Glenn Livingston, who's a raw vegan
Mhm.
psychologist, and he talks about eating an entire bunch of bananas in one sitting, and she says, I only ever allow myself to have one banana a day, and then I had to start asking, after I listened to that episode, I had to start asking myself, why is it that I only allow myself one banana a day? Like, and then she kind of peeled back the layers and realized we do this the way we were raised. Like if our parents said, no, you can only have one or whatever. Like my mom was obsessed with carbs. And,
Right.
and so I still feel guilty at times when I eat rice, like,
Mm.
and like brown rice, like, something that is
Yeah.
totally fine for my body. My body
Mm.
resonates with it. And yet I catch myself like going, because my mom would really be strict with us, like our
Mhm.
whole family, around carbs, because she bought into the carb fear.
Right.
And I think that we need to look at our belief system around
Mhm.
food and around health,
Mhm.
and go, well, what is it? My belief system is it a belief system I
Mhm.
adopted from my childhood, and
Mhm.
is this still serving me? And so I
Right.
love that you had the flexibility with your
Mhm.
diet,
Mhm.
to find what really healed you. You went
Yeah.
gluten free and dairy free as well.
Well, dairy free actually just happened, I would say, in the past year and a half, because I noticed that I would have a hormonal reaction to it. And then I did a little
Mm.
bit of reading on it. Is it Gottfried? Dr. Sarah Gottfried. She talks a lot about that, and I was like, you know what? I'm seeing that I don't need this, and then I don't like the reaction I have when I'm with it. So why? So I think
Mhm.
going back to what you were saying about being flexible is really very important. And it's not just being flexible to what you're eating or how you eat. It's being flexible to the fact that you change as a person. You
Yeah.
change, your diet can change, your situation can change, and it's okay because that's what life is about. We don't stay, toddlers. We don't stay at 5 years old. We don't stay at 20. We change, and as we change, it's okay to change it up around you. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
totally agree with you. On
yeah.
this whole journey, my husband, who was the biggest meat eater, he would
Mhm.
say, like, he had this joke that anytime he met a vegan, he'd say, I eat vegans daily. And they would kind of roll their eyes and scoff at him, and he'd
Yeah.
laugh.
Mhm.
And now, I mean, he is so proud of being plant-based.
Yeah.
Does not want to be identified as a vegan. He doesn't want to be
Yeah.
identified, but he's
Mhm.
eating a vegan diet. But
Right.
he doesn't want to like have a label put on him.
Yeah.
But he is so happy, and it's his choice. He is
Mhm.
so happy. He started at the beginning of January, and I've just gone more plant-based.
Mhm.
And he's gone full on, and he loves it. And you're right
Great.
about changing our diet and having that flexibility, also seeing how much we change as a person,
Mhm.
because now we're starting to change some other things in our routine,
Mhm.
and we're actually working on a garden out back. We've got
Oh, great.
I just sowed some seeds yesterday, and we've got a 50 by 25 plot. So we're
Mhm.
gonna see how much we can live out of our backyard.
Mhm. That's
and
great.
uh and so us getting out there in the garden, I mean, and that's shifting our habits and
Mhm.
our routine,
Mhm.
and it's amazing how good we feel doing
Right.
that. So when you really feel good after making a shift, follow it and see
Mhm.
how far down the rabbit hole you can go. So you're October 3 years ago. You're starting to go, oh my gosh, these symptoms are no longer here.
Yeah.
But and of course now you've got a little bit of anxiety because you don't have a job, right?
Right.
So how did you find the Institute for Integrative Nutrition?
Oh, okay. Well, it's very interesting how everything happens, and I was reading all of these articles because I was implementing a lot of what I was reading into my life, and the more I felt better, the more I, kept up on all of this. So the ad kept popping up, which a lot of people tell me when I on the phone with them, and I mean that's how the computer's set up. If it sees something you like, it'll pop up other things that you like. So I saw it, the ad, and I had a friend who had mentioned that she saw it, and she's like, "Oh, I think you should look into that," because at this point, I'm changing my diet. Everywhere I go, I bring my food, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
very particular about what I order. So everyone's asking me what's going on. I'd lost weight, I was really, working hard. So there was that there was that element there, so a lot of people like, you speak so passionately about it. I'm like, it's because I feel like I was poisoned for years with all these GMOs and all of these foods that I didn't know had such an adverse effect to me as a person. Forget my body, what I mean, it affected who I was. So yeah, I went to march against Monsanto. I was really very upset about what was happening out there. So I looked into the school, and it was, I called in, and asked a little bit about the information. I watched the sample class, and I was like, oh, I like this. And then I had asked how much it was, and at the time I didn't have a job, as you know, so I was like, I can't pay for this. So I talked to my dad about it. My dad's like, you need to figure out what you want to do before we put this kind of money in there. And I was like, you can't blame him. This is brand new introduced. It's brand new introduced to me. And I said, okay. So it took me another month, and I asked for a little more information. I got part of a webinar, and I was just like, I I like this because um, what I was seeing in what was being presented in the videos was the holistic approach. The primary foods is what got me, where you're looking at a person's career and their relationships and their spiritual practice, their movement and exercise, or their lack of. I mean, those were things that are really very important to a person's health, that was really close to counseling. And I love that Joshua Rosenthal, the founder of our school, has a background in counseling. So when I'm looking at this, because remember I told you earlier, I wish I knew this and I would have implemented it as a social worker. There was health was not even talked of. And I was like, there's the missing piece. So
Mm-hmm.
this school has the primary foods, but they also have all of these different dietary theories. And what was really great about it, it wasn't so strict. You know how some people, they're so strict about following one dietary theory and that's all that works for them. But
Right.
and as you know, Ashley, there are lots of people who swear by paleo, who swear by veganism, who swear by Atkins or the peanut butter, whatever it is, but it really did work for them, right? Didn't it? It did, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for me. And I don't want to feel like a failure because it doesn't work for me.
Mm.
And that was really very important to me. So I was like, I like this school, I'm going to do it. So I borrowed against my 401k. That's all I had left, and I called in and I enrolled. I paid in full because I liked the discount, and I enrolled and I started in January of 2015, 3 years ago.
Awesome. And so did you do their program online?
I did, yes. So it went online about 10, 15 years ago. I don't remember exactly. So you can only do it online. And because I was, back and forth through different houses, I was going to my parents, my uncles, and I had, I was in a free place. I didn't know what I was going to do, but so it was great because it was online. So I did everything online, and I ended up moving to California to see if I would start my business there. It was interesting going back to being flexible about changing as a person. I said, I definitely want to do this full time, and I was like, maybe it's a little too close to social work. And I felt that part of the problem of my issues too was I was too involved in my clients and my work that added stress to the stress in my body. So I said to myself, I want to do this part-time. So
Mm-hmm.
I started doing this part-time because I didn't want to say goodbye to it at all. I loved counseling, I loved the interactions, I loved working one-on-one, really getting to know the individual and being a part of them smiling. There's nothing like it, Ashley. There really isn't. Where someone will look at you with stars in their eyes and say, "It's because of you I'm here." And it's like, really, no, it's you. You did it. I just helped you, find your strength, and give you some tips along the way. But it's really quite amazing. So I had started my job part time, my business, sorry, part time while I was in California, and while I was there, I had missed New York too much. I was from the East Coast, and I said to myself, okay, so what would be ideal for you right now? Still be a part of this world, and still coach part time. So I said, what's better, and how many people can I help as much as possible? So I said, what's better than helping people help other people? So that's when I looked on the website for IIN to see that they were hiring for, the admissions department. And I, had applied and I had an interview and everything worked out and here I am. But it was just, it was like, but it was so amazing to be part of it. There's this interesting verse in the Bible where Jesus says to disciples to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send more, laborers. And that's how I see it. I'm like sending more laborers out there, by helping people enroll into this
That's cool.
really, really great, program, because it's not just informative when it comes to health and primary foods and dietary theories, but there's that personal transformation. There's a part of me that changed, that I walked in there a different person than when I came out. Like I don't really see that I can't do anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see that anymore. It's just like, if I can't do it, it's because I didn't put the effort in. It's not because it's out of my reach, and I used to think that way. And it's really very amazing how your brain can shift and you can actually have peace with that, so that's how I ended up here at
I
the
love it.
institute.
And so, what? How many years ago or months ago did you start working at IAN?
In June, which is in a month and a half, will be 2 years.
Oh my
So,
gosh! So two
yeah,
years ago.
yeah,
So when you were that brief time that you were in California doing
yeah.
your coaching practice, and I totally get it. Like you were kind of feeling out. I think the first year of doing
Mhm.
health coaching after you
Yeah,
graduate from IAN, you're
yeah,
still getting your bearings as a coach and feeling it
right.
out and deciding like what direction you want to go. And I've coached a few uh, people who are listeners who
Mhm.
decided to enroll in IIN and
Mhm.
reached out to me. And
Mhm.
anyone who is a listener who writes me an email that says I'm
Mhm.
interested in IIN, I want a phone call with them.
Yes,
It's
that's
because I want
great.
to talk to them and and help them figure out, is this right for you, or just based on sharing my experience.
Right.
But I've said to the last woman I spoke to, who's a great listener, I said, and she's managing properties,
Mhm.
and so I said to her, and she wants to transition. She really doesn't, it's like soul crushing, not
Right.
helping people, right?
Right.
And so what I said to her is, you're going to want to find a niche, right? Because
Mhm.
like, become a thyroid health coach or a blood sugar health coach or
Mhm.
whatever, or a
Right.
PCOS health coach. You want to find a niche, but you really won't know until you have actually like boots on the ground, worked with
Right.
some clients. And what I love about IIN is about 5.5 months, you maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but about 5.5 months into the program, you can
Mhm.
start seeing clients.
Mhm.
And at least that was my experience. I know that they're always improving the program.
That's correct.
And so during my program, it was about 5.5. It was just before the 6 month mark that we could start
Right.
seeing clients. And what I
Yeah.
love about that is that, so for the remainder of the 6 months that you're in the program, you're seeing clients, and you're also still growing as a coach.
Right.
and you're also figuring yourself out and figuring out what direction you want to go in, because a lot of health coaches get hired by doctors' offices
Right.
and hospitals,
Mhm.
chiropractic offices, all, there's so many professionals now, health professionals that want a health coach in their
Mm.
practice. And then there's a lot of health coaches that just want to work online and just want to
Right.
like Skype their clients. And then there's ones
Right.
that want to be face to face with them. And so you just don't, whatever you think you want to do, you don't know until you've actually sat with a client and
Mhm.
worked with them for 3 to 6 months. And then you go, wow, because I learned so much from my clients in the last, well, it hasn't been a year yet since, because I graduated August of last year. And
Mhm.
so it's just been amazing learning from my clients. And so I do it part-time, like you
Mhm.
decided,
Mhm.
because I mean, I'm doing the podcast full-time and a bunch
Mhm.
of other stuff, like five
Right.
full-time things.
Right.
And I'm a mom, so all this stuff
Yeah.
I'm doing, I really want to be I really want to make sure that when I'm with a client, it's like 100%. And you're right, I love working with them, and I get so invested, and it's so much fun, so rewarding to see the changes they make in their life,
Mhm.
and that you can be that guide, that tour guide. You're not telling them what to do, but you're helping them to come to the answers that make their transformation possible, and they're the ones really doing all the work, but you're the one bringing clarity. You're helping
Right.
them bring clarity to their own decisions.
Mhm.
um and then we have all this information on top of that we can help them,
Mhm.
navigate these choices. Something as simple as going dairy free can be life changing if someone, for example,
Absolutely.
has chronic infections or
Yeah.
hormonal issues, right? Something
Right.
as simple as going like gluten free for me changed my life. So I did it
Mhm.
7 years ago, and that was the first step in healing all the issues I had, was
Mhm.
going gluten free. But
Mhm.
it's not going to help everyone.
Right.
And so,
Absolutely.
but it's the willingness to experiment, and then also look back and go, okay, I made these 3 changes. What was the difference that made the difference? And
Right.
sometimes it takes a health coach to help you see the clarity, because we're so in
Absolutely.
the problem, it's hard to see our own,
Absolutely.
so we're so
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
So when you were in California, what
Mhm.
did you do to attract clients? Because I think a big question that comes from a lot of listeners who are
Mhm.
interested in
Mhm.
stepping out and becoming a health coach is
Mhm.
that's the big unknown. They don't know how can they make the transition between what they're
Yeah.
doing now and a year later when they graduate from IIN, or 6 months actually into their program, they can start working with clients. So if listeners are listening right now and they're like, man, in 6 months I could be working with my first clients, but
Yeah.
how do I find clients? So you moved to a new
Mhm.
state, you didn't know anyone, like you didn't have a giant group of friends you could have, market for you. So how
Right.
did you get clients?
Right. Well, I did know someone. I was living with my cousin, but I didn't have any friends, as you did say. I may have known a couple of people in different cities because at that time I was also guest blogging for Fit Life TV. So I had met a couple of the writers in person,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them were graduates of the program. So it was a very small world. So uh, what happened with me, I am one of those people is that has to follow what's being said to me before I can say it doesn't work, going back to my protocol when I said so.
Mm-hmm.
I took what the program was telling me, post on Facebook, talk about it with your friends, not being annoying about it, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to, it's not that you're bothering someone, this is something that interests you. It's like, what are you up to lately? Well, this is actually what I'm doing, and then you talk about it. So I was actually helping my cousin with his business. It was just something on the side as I was building my business up. He is a DJ for corporate events and weddings, and he had me placed at David's Bridal to speak about the DJ business. And brides do not want to be talking about anything but their dresses at David's bridal. And I was like, they were walking by me like I wasn't even there. So I was bored. I'll be honest with you, Ashley. So I decided to walk around and just talk to the brides just about anything. What are you looking at? Are you excited? It had nothing to do with his business, my business, anything. I was tired and bored and I wanted to talk to someone. So I talked to this bride, and I had something about stress had come up, and her emotions, and I had mentioned, oh, that's so interesting. I just wrote an article about what happens to your body when you suppress your emotions, and I said, oh, I can email it to you. Oh yeah, I'd like to see it. So I got her email address. Her maid of honor was there talking about, you know, how she's been feeling inflammation a lot. She started to change her diet a little bit. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So I told her what I was doing. And I was like, yeah, we just started, doing health histories. I would love to do it with you free of charge, and she's like, okay. So we exchange information. We set it up an appointment. And I had a conversation with her and an evaluation over the health history. And she and I connected immediately. There were tears that came, and that's something in the program that you learn when you've connected with someone. Tears come, then you really see that this person can work with you. You can work with them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really how it started with my first client. Absolutely adore her. She made some great positive changes. She renewed 2 or 3 times with me. I set up a 6-month program with her, and then she was my first client. And then another suggestion the program says is, talk about it, talk to your friends, post. So I was doing that, and my friends knew what I was doing in my life, and I was going to this class. So one friend, who's a doctor, by the way, said she wanted to sign up with me. I can't refer people to you unless I know how you work, is what she said. So I said, oh,
Nice.
yeah. So I said, okay. So we did. She signed up, and she did some really great positive changes in that 6 months. And then she recommended a doctor friend of hers who I'm currently seeing to this day, actually. So the thing is, I'm also very flexible with my clients too. You don't want to push them too much. You don't want to, be overly eager too, that then you turn somebody off. Basically, a lot of what you're doing is you're listening, you're helping them basically feel normal, that it's okay that they're struggling, that they can get through this. There's so much that goes into coaching with someone. So that's how I found, another client. Another client came through a classmate. She couldn't see the person, so there was a conflict or some sort of interest or something, and she had suggested the person to me. She ended up signing. I didn't think she was, but she did, and then she referred someone to me. So a lot of what I did was more of like just the talking and being normal about it, and posting where I could, on Facebook. I had a couple of people from Facebook sign up with me too. And then there was the, word of mouth that came. So that's how my clients came to me.
I love how organic it is, and that's exactly my
Yeah.
experience. How IAN during the year-long health coach training program, they go through all the different ways that you could really organically create that rapport and that
Hmm.
connection. But I love that you were doing guest blogging, and then saying, "Oh, I wrote an article on that. Let me send it to you," because that's
Yeah.
really great. Great. Now you have their information. You can go back and forth, and they can start to, as they digest your blog or your podcast or your YouTube videos, whatever media you put out there,
Right.
you can then use that as resources and send that to prospective clients, and then they start to get to know you and your content, and they're
Hmm.
really, that spiked their interest. I love
Right.
that you obviously did what IAN told you to do, which is doing the free health history.
Hmm.
um what I thought was so interesting was when I went through IAN's health coach training program, is that their way of teaching felt so easy to
Hmm.
digest,
Hmm.
because they gave it in such small chunks every week. It was manageable because I'm really
Hmm.
busy, right? I'm
Hmm.
super busy. And their modules were so easy to fit into my schedule that it didn't feel like a big course. But when I look back and see, like, I can't believe how much content I learned, and
Right.
like how much I learned. It
Hmm.
feels like a mountain of information, but because they dole it out such small pieces,
Hmm.
it really just becomes subtly part of my neurology. Like, I
Right.
just was able to assimilate the information. Like, doing a health history now is like breathing, it's second nature. But going
Right.
back to thinking about, like, right when I started IAN, if you told me that I'd be able to sit down with someone and ask them questions and then have them just kind of open up,
Hmm.
I would have been like, I don't know how to do that. But by the
Mhm.
end of the program, I was fully
Mhm.
fluent in how to do
Mhm.
it. And so
Right.
I think people might have reservations like, oh, I'm not that kind of person or I can't do that. But IN
Right.
really does set you up for success to be able to do those
Mhm.
things. And so you use the free initial like health history
Mhm.
to have some people decide they want to work with you, and
Yeah.
referrals. Obviously, when you start working with people, then they get such great results. They refer their friends, and you're
Yes.
just talking on Facebook and sharing your experience, talking on whatever social media you have friends
Mhm. Mhm.
on. And then just, bumping into people. I can't believe how many times I've bumped into people and I'm like standing in line and they might tell me about
Yeah.
their arthritis or they might tell me about
Yeah.
whatever, their migraines. And all of a sudden we're talking about like, health coaching, or I
Right.
share them and I share with them an episode I've done on the
Mhm.
show, and then we exchange information, and so it
Mhm.
can happen very organically, and I love
True.
that you did that. And so you were seeing clients in California even before you graduated.
That is correct.
I love that.
I started at the 8th month mark, not the 6th month mark.
That's
Right.
okay. That's
I know.
okay.
That's what I tell people. You do get your mid-year certificate badge at 6 months, and you can start seeing people. You have all your business tools and everything at 6 months. Um, but I wasn't quite ready at 6 months, and it was okay. I waited till 8. You can wait till after you graduate. I mean, it's different for everybody. And there are people who are so excited, they want to get started right away. Do what feels good to you. And also, don't hold yourself back too much either, because there are a lot of people who say, well, I don't know enough. Well, honestly, you know more than you think you do, because your family's always coming to you about stuff. And
Mm.
you've changed something in your life that makes sense. And also, as a person who went through graduate school and social work, people will say, well, she was a therapist, she was a counselor, she knows how to do this. Well, I can actually tell you that some of the content was very similar to graduate classes that I had and
That's
how to
cool.
engage people. So what the training that you're getting there is the training I got. It was maybe just a refresher for me, but it's something that you will be prepared to do. And I tell a lot of callers on the phone, it is what you put in it. I'm not going to tell you building a business is going to be easy, because that would be wrong on my part. It's not true. But you put the time in, you put the effort, you will see results. You can't say, I want a rose bush, and not plant the seed, or you plant the seed but you don't water it, you don't put the fertilizer. You're not going to see the results of something if you don't maintain, you don't put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it. But the thing is, you also have to follow the tools that are given you.
Mm-hmm.
And the tools they're given you for a reason, because it works. It's worked with other people. It worked for Joshua. It works for those that have come after him. And you can be successful. And it's really important to believe that too. And that's where the personal development mindset change really needs to help you to feel the success that's going to happen for
Mm.
you.
Mm-hmm. I do have some more questions about that, but I wanted to go back.
Sure.
I wanted to make sure that we covered this one thing that I had remembered as you were talking about how food, you'd mentioned a few minutes ago that food, when you help your clients shift their food, that there's a lot of times what people don't realize is that there is an emotional component to food, meaning, let's say someone's allergic to corn and they don't know that, like, their body's sensitive to corn, they don't know
Hmm.
it, but when they
Hmm.
eat something with corn in it, they get depressed or they get
Hmm.
anxious or they get angry, and
Hmm.
they don't they do not correlate the two.
Hmm.
And there's this interesting thing that happens where our emotional body is connected to our physiological body.
Hmm.
And so when something is disrupted on a physical plane, our emotional plane is also, because imagine our emotions are living in a physical, they're living inside the physical body. So when the physical
Hmm.
body is disrupted, the emotional body is disrupted, right?
Hmm.
When our hormonal system is disrupted, our emotions are disrupted. That's why they say, like, you got PMS, right?
Hmm.
That's our hormones are out of balance. I've worked with naturopaths that said, like, specifically naturopaths that only deal with female clients, and they believe that if a healthy person should have zero symptoms during their period, and PMS is not actually part of having a period. That if
Right.
we have cravings for chocolate and we feel like exhausted in the morning, or if we feel like angry and irritable and we snap at people, all those are symptoms of something out of balance.
Right.
And that out of balance could actually be coming from some foods that the body's not agreeing with. It could be coming from a magnesium deficiency, because, there's so many things it could, the root cause could be.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, in this society, we sort of chalk it up to, oh, that's just what happens.
Right.
And it's no, it's not. I mean, those are a sign the body's trying to talk to us. And I just wanted to point out, this was I learned this actually in IIN, that there was this really interesting thing that happened when grains were introduced to a tribe that, I think it was Fiji, it was one of those islands, that
Mhm.
the tribal people had never eaten grains before. That just wasn't part of their diet. Their diet was like fish and tubers.
Mhm.
And so the explorers brought over corn and wheat and stuff like that. And they had these tribes, like it was like 30,000 people. It's a big, big population, but these people had never ever had schizophrenia. And
Mhm.
when they brought over the grains, all of a sudden schizophrenia was now a thing.
Wow.
And they observed that these people, these traders, because they would trade grains for, like, pelts of fur or whatever. um they noticed that the mental health issues were actually happening. And the same thing with Hawaii. The ancient Hawaiians have no record of mental illness until the
Mhm.
settlers came and introduced their foods.
Wow.
And so um and so then what they did was, taking this information, I think it was in France, they have a ward, a schizophrenic ward, where they removed 100% of the grains. So there's no corn, no barley, no wheat, no rye, nothing. And they saw that schizophrenic outbreaks virtually dropped to zero. And then they reintroduced, a month later or so, reintroduced grains, and then schizophrenic outbreaks started again. And so they could turn it on and off. Not saying the person was cured of schizophrenia, but they could really see that the irritation that grains had on the body and the nervous system was also affecting their mental and emotional state. And it's
Mhm.
like, how many of us are walking around on foods that affect our mental and emotional state?
Mhm.
And I love that, as a health coach, you can really help someone identify what might be, affecting them, not only physically but mentally and emotionally, and help
Right.
them to come to a place where they're healthier as a whole.
Mhm.
And having what you mentioned about IAN, that there's not one dogma, well, not one diet dogma, but that
Mhm.
we get an education on 100 different dietary theories, so that we can help someone dial in what's right for them,
Mhm.
and pick and choose and find exactly what's healing for them at this period in their life. So,
Mhm.
um, you've now had the experience of taking the program, of working with clients, and having great success helping your clients, and then now you have this experience of being on the other side, helping people to enroll into IIN and become successful health coaches. I'd love to know, out of the people, since now you've obviously been in contact with people that are about to, the first people that you helped to enroll, they're about to graduate, which is really cool.
Mhm.
But in the last year, or almost a year of working at IIN, have you heard any stories of success that really touched your heart and stayed with you, that you'd like to share?
I have to say, there's quite a few interesting stories, of people who have taken the education and have implemented into their lives, in a way that sometimes you don't think that, you know a person would take it that far, but they do. People are amazing when they have a vision or they have a goal. Just the other day, a few of us were talking about, there is a graduate, who has I believe, a hotel in Nicaragua that's inside a volcano. They have built this. It's really fascinating, and they have, like, accommodations with the food, and they provide you with this healthy, beautiful experience, and the prices are decent, so I'm like, wow, it just boggles my mind. We have a couple of people who are, um, who have basically come up with products. One of our graduates has a successful juicing company. It's called Press Juice, and this one of our graduates, and this is like you see people walking around with these bottle of juices. It's really quite amazing. And people from our company, from IN, walk around with this juice. So it's really free. It's like really amazing. And, then I have like, there's a couple of, graduates who basically work alongside. I know one exactly who works with alongside an NRT kinesiologist. So basically, you see the kinesiologist NRT guy, and then you see the health coach for the support. So this is actually what my kinesiologist is missing. I could have used that, when I first went
Mm.
to them. So this is something that is very needed because people need that support. They know they need to make the changes, but you need that person where you can ask the questions, where they can check in with you. Being held accountable is really very important for your success. Because someone's going to ask you, or it's someone you can say, well, this didn't work for me. Is there another way that this can work for me, something else? I also have someone that I know that actually was working for this company. It's a health company. It's called Truzy. He was started as a health coach there, and then now he's actually the co-owner. So it's really quite fascinating that he moved from coaching. The individuals, the products are very, very good. Ingredients, very good, healthy ingredients, and was helping people with their success, and then moved to become like this co-owner. I know a couple people who do, work alongside a chiropractor, or go into schools and provide a curriculum, for healthy eating, cooking, things like of that nature.
Can you talk a little bit about that? So,
Mhm,
so there are health coaches when they graduate from
mhm,
IIN
mhm.
that they contact what public schools or charter schools, and what they help work with the chefs and help shift their programs so that the kids are not eating junk food anymore.
I can't say I know exactly how that looks, but I can say that they would um, they would contact the I believe the Board of Education, or the Parents Association, and see that they can, and talk to them about what they can offer for their kids,
Mm.
and offer, and what they can offer is, you always want to give someone an end result. That's how you bring them in. So if you want to help kids, you want to basically say, well, I can help them with their being able to alert to be more alert, and to be able to retain more information, things of that nature. And then, oh, really, how can you help with that? Well, let's look at their diet. Let's help them, see their choices, what we have to offer, things of that nature. But
Mm-hmm.
again, like, I don't know exactly what that looks like, because, it's sometimes you hear of what people are doing, but you don't necessarily have the freedom to hear the nuts and bolts of it. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, but
yeah.
I know that there are some listeners who know how bad it is in the public school system or in the chartered
Mhm,
schools or whatever I mean, I loved watching Jamie Oliver's. He had 2 seasons of a
mhm.
TV show where he was trying to get kids just to like recognize what broccoli was. Like
Right,
there were kids in grade 2 that didn't know what a tomato was or what broccoli was because they're only used to it being processed food, and that
right,
100% of their diet was processed.
right.
And it's really sad, and of course it's going to affect them. And unfortunately, how this system works is we have big food, like McDonald's,
Mhm,
for example,
mhm,
lobbying
mhm.
to be able to be in the school system. And
Mhm.
so there are actual schools that serve McDonald's every day.
Wow.
I'm in the middle of reading Dr. Joel Furman's most recent book. I totally recommend it. It's called Food Genocide.
Mhm,
And in the first chapter, he outlines that those they took a large cohort of people that they followed for many years, and they discovered that even if you eat one meal a week of fast food, you've raised your, I believe it was 40% chance of heart disease if you even eat one meal a week that is fast food. So one meal a week that's processed and fried food.
wow.
And if you had it more than once a week, like twice a week or 3 times a week, it went up to 60%. And if you had fried food every day, it was like 89% that you were
Mhm,
absolutely going to have, like, basically die of a heart attack. And
mhm,
and now they're finding children that have the early signs of heart disease. I interviewed Dr. Esselstyn, and he says that back when I believe oh, don't quote me on this. I think he said Vietnam War, but he is he's I think coming up to being in his 90s. He's 80 something, and he did autopsies of the 20-year-olds basically who
Mhm.
were dying in the war, and he would see the beginning stages of heart disease in the 20-year-olds, and now like 6-year-olds
Oh
we're
my,
seeing
wow.
the same amount of heart disease basically. That so those 20-year-olds would have had a heart attack maybe at 50, and now these 6-year-olds are going to have a heart attack at 30. And so
Mhm.
we're setting these children up. So now, I don't want to predict this. I want to change it. But
Mhm.
if we go the way we're going, our
Mhm.
6-year-olds right now, in 25 years, we're going to start to
Mhm.
hear of heart disease just out of proportion, because we're allowing, and by allowing, I mean we're standing here not doing something about it. We have to have
Mhm.
our voices be stronger than the lobbyists
Mhm.
to change the food system in all of our schools.
Mhm.
Regardless of whether we have a child in a school or not, we should care about the future of these
Absolutely.
because these are innocent children that are being
Right.
fed food that's hyper palatable, that are so it's so delightful for their nervous system, because it creates
Mhm.
that dopamine response. And
Mhm.
so the kids really love it because it's creating that pleasure response.
Mhm.
And it's so damaging to their bodies. And we're
Right.
basically, it's like if we went to every high school and every elementary school and we just handed heroin over to these kids. Of course,
Right.
like anyone who does heroin's like it tricks the brain into wanting to keep doing it, right?
Right.
It's not
Right.
healthy. It's going to trick you into wanting to keep doing this unhealthy behavior. And that's what we're giving children. We're giving children the food equivalent of heroin.
Right.
And it's our fault as adults in
Right.
general.
Right.
So I love hearing that health coaches are jumping in there and making a difference. They're fighting on the front lines of this
Mhm.
health war.
Mhm.
And I think that's where we're going to win it, is with health
Mhm.
coaches, is because
Right.
anyone can become a health coach. The stay-at-home mom can become a health coach. The
Right.
the the stay-at-home dad can become a health coach. An 18-year-old getting out of high school who just
Right.
wants to make a difference could be a health coach. The PhD could become a health coach. You don't need to have this. You don't need to go and have a BA or
Right.
like, not that having a master's or whatever is bad. It's just you don't have to wait, right? Like,
Mhm.
in order for me to be a naturopath, I'd have to wait and do a lot more school, and then
Right.
I'd be helping people as a naturopath many years from now. But as a
Mhm.
health coach, I can just do in 6 months I can start helping. I start making a difference in that regard. So,
Right.
that's what I love, is that we can start helping people right now. What
Absolutely.
what other so helping people in the industry around education,
Mhm.
in terms of shifting the food there, what other industries have you seen your graduates work in?
I know of a graduate who actually was going from doctor's office to doctor's office and basically giving a presentation on how she can help the doctor be successful with his patients. She currently works with a cardiologist.
Oh, I
Uh,
love it.
yeah, and I also know of other health coach graduates who actually work alongside or with like health product type companies like Juice Plus or Airbon or I can't. They're all I can't remember all of them.
Right, right.
But yeah.
There's a lot of great holistic companies that are network
Yes.
marketing companies that
Yeah.
do a lot of good. And so
Yes.
you're saying that they utilize the business structure of that network marketing company in addition to their health coaching to help their client, but also generate another source of income.
Yes. Or the company actually, what they're doing is they're representative of the company sell the supplement or whatever the product is, but these health coaches are taking it upon themselves to be there as a support
Oh, so
during
the
that
company
process.
themselves, like, Juice Plus, for example, hires health coaches?
No, they are not.
Okay.
As far as I know, they are not. It's
Okay.
mostly the coaches are seeing that as they're offering these products that their clients or their customers need extra support. So they'll recommend the products, but they're also coaching them to have success.
Got it.
So they're not just saying, here, take this and go, you'll be fine. But it's like, let's sit down, let's see what else we can do. Let's look at,
Yes.
why you're being unsuccessful on certain days when you are successful on other days, and it's really taking the time with each individual that in this world and time and place that people are not really taking time for each other,
Mm.
and that's really very important when it comes to coaching, because how many people can you really say really listen to you?
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you mean, because I've actually bought a lot of products from a lot of network marketing companies that are
Mhm,
like so high quality,
mhm,
really amazing supplements, and to get that personalized additional coaching beyond that from that distributor. I mean, it's
mhm,
rare, but when you
mhm,
do, it makes such a big difference. And I know of um people who are in like isogenics, longevity, young living, like
mhm.
Juice Plus, like you said,
Yes,
who have already been building their health network marketing business, and then they want to take to the next level. Then they join IIN, become a
right.
health coach, and then they go back and they now can support their customers and their new customers on a whole new level.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
about those who become chefs? Or I've heard of health coaches that go on, like Andrea Beeman. Well, she's gone on to become, and I've had her on the show. I just love Andrea Beeman.
Yeah.
She's gone on to, not only was she a graduate, but she went on to become one of the teachers at IIN, and
Yes.
she's an amazing coach and also chef, because she teaches
Yes.
like if we're gonna make these
Yes.
dietary changes, well, how do we cook?
Right.
And she has such a easy way of learning from her, and she does online programs. That's another thing that health coaches can do, is create like
Yes.
online health coaching programs. So it's like you record the videos once, and then you can basically sell your videos, your program, and
Absolutely.
then in addition, then you have maybe some live Q&As, so that there's that interaction, but then you don't have to
Yes.
recreating the wheel over and over again, because you've recorded it
Absolutely.
once. um,
Absolutely.
and what about authors? I know you have an additional program
Yes.
that in IIN, so when someone graduates, they can kind of take graduate level
Yeah.
programs.
We have our postgraduate classes, and our popular one is the Launch Your Dream Book course. So we have many graduates who have top sellers in Amazon, where they've written books and they've really have reached out, to a lot of people through the written word. So that's definitely a big one. And you're right, there are lots of health coaches who become personal chefs for either families, or they start their own
Mm.
cooking classes, because one of the things you will notice is that people want to learn how to cook, and then if they're going to learn how to cook, they want to make sure their ingredients are not just the best ingredients, but that it tastes good.
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
and a lot of our graduates play around with recipes that really are very tasty. I found that I really played with my creative side because I had to cut out so many foods, so I was like, oh well, then what can I do with
Mhm.
this? How can I recreate this? So it's just something that is very needed, and it's really important to, you know, um, market yourself in the niche that you find, like you had mentioned earlier. You need to find a niche that works for you, and stick to that first. You can expand later, in other areas. But if you're let's just say, if we're talking about a singing career, for instance, and there's someone who wants to be a pop star, but really they have such a great soul voice, that's what they should be marketing. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Exactly. Because if you were trying, one song's like rap and the other one's
Yeah.
like
It,
R&B, and the next song's like country, you're not gonna be able to attract. You're gonna create a fan base or attract.
exactly.
You're kind of gonna be like, get positioned, and
Mhm.
then you will be able to attract the right fans, and
Exactly.
then you can experiment with different genres. That makes
Absolutely.
sense, because if
Yeah.
you're focusing on thyroid and then all of a sudden you start talking about weight loss or blood sugar, although you can help a thyroid
Yeah.
client with those things, it's just easier for you to not go crazy
Right.
as a health coach, to just
Right.
focus on one thing, and then
Right.
get your foothold.
Yes.
Um, I, kn- I know we're coming to the end of our interview. I would love for you to paint the picture of what it looks like to work at IIN, because I imagine this is what I have in my mind. It's like a utopia where you walk in and everyone wants a hug at the beginning of the day, and everyone's got their smoothie and their salad, and everyone shares their, their crunchy granola, the gluten-free snacks with each other. And then there's hugs and high fives at the end of the day. Like, I just imagine this utopia of wonderful hugs and love all around. Can you enlighten us? What does it look like? Pull back the curtain. What does it look like to work there? And in your first days at IIN, were you kind of in shock and awe of how beautiful it was, or is it just like any other office where there's grumpiness and office drama?
Well, it's definitely not like any other office, that's for sure. When you walk in, people are actually nice.
Were there
You know,
hugs?
there's not that many hugs, I'm gonna be honest
Oh,
with you
well,
there. But if someone wants a hug, you can get one. I'll have to say you will meet some of the best people you have met in one area is at IIN. It's like, how some great people, but they're scattered throughout your life and throughout
hmm
different parts of the world. No, this is like, imagine like all of the great people that you know in your life or are about to meet in your life and have met in your past, put them all in one area. And you genuinely like the people that you work for because you understand each other. You don't have to explain yourself when you are saying, well, this week I'm actually detoxing, so I can't have that. You don't have to. You don't have to explain. You know what I mean? People get it. It's the truth.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And we actually have organic, gluten free everything snacks and food here. It's a beautiful, wonderful, perk and blessing that Joshua provides us. So, and guess what? It's all labeled. So you could see what you're eating so you're not cross contaminating or doing anything like that. So it's really very, very cool.
That's really
So,
awesome. What kind of
yeah.
what do you love about you as an employee? Like, does Joshua like offer extra training, or is there, do you guys go on retreats, or, well, as an employee, what do you guys get to help you as a team grow and help you as employees?
Well, we actually do get a retreat once a year, and it's fully paid for. We can just go have a little R&R. We also have massages every other week that we
In the
get.
office?
Yes.
Oh,
So
yes.
to help us with our, for stress relief and kind of, help us center ourselves. So there's just I have to say I love the perks. It's amazing. This retreat is like we go down to Miami for a weekend, and we can just relax and be in each other's company and, just enjoy that. We also have a chiropractor that come once a month and gives us an adjustment, to help us with anything that's going on with our alignment. So, and we also have a yoga teacher who comes in once a week that you can take a class at night after work, to help with that too. So there's a lot of really great things here um, that, it's just, I'm smiling as I talk to you because it's like, it's not describable. It's not something that you see everywhere you go.
Does Joshua, I mean, as the owner, obviously, Joshua, I mean, I know that on a personal level, he has such a big heart. I had him on the show.
Mhm.
He has such a big heart, and I love learning from him. But as an employer, you have to think like bottom line. Like, does paying for a chiropractor and a massage therapist and a yoga teacher and all these free gluten-free healthy organic snacks, does that really add up to more profits? And so I'd love to know, do you feel that all those things make a difference in not make a difference in the productivity of all of the team members there at IIN?
I believe it does help, because if you're eating something that is, nutritious, for your body, for your brain health, and you don't have to worry about ordering it or cooking it the night before, that does help with productivity, because that's a stress that you don't have to think about,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that he takes care of. I mean, who would not benefit from a massage every other week? You know what I mean? It's just something that no matter how well you're walking in your life and your path, there's always going to be stressors. There's always going to be an emotion to reaction to something. So you're going to feel it in your body first. We tend to ignore it, but it's there. So when you have a chiropractor to adjust you and you have a person to massage you, it'll help, release those toxins or those tensions so that you can get back to, what you were doing, your task.
I just wanted to illustrate that because for those who are listening who are employers, it would be a great experiment for them to incorporate those perks and see if they could, see if that actually improves their overall business. Because I really believe it's like, like you said, taking care of that rose bush, right? When you're taking care
Hmm.
of your own business, when you are self-employed, which I've been for 10 years, when you're self-employed and taking care of your own business, you have to take care of yourself. That is if you don't put the oxygen mask on you and you don't make sure that your health, your emotional, physical, mental health, and that you keep your stress down, if you don't take care of you, then your business will suffer. And you can really see that as a self-employed person.
Hmm.
But when you're an employer of a bunch of, like Jeff Bezos, for example, I mean, there he is recently showing pictures of him in the Antarctic, with dog sleds, going on, a multimillionaire's kind of vacation. And what's coming out now is that there's a large percentage of his employers who are on some kind of assistance, like food stamps.
Mm.
And it's like, and then you look at Costco, and Costco is an amazing example of taking care of their employees, and the employees then really taking care of Costco. They're
Hmm.
incredibly well paid. The employees generally love working there, and they give back. And as a customer of Costco, you can see that, right? Versus Walmart, where they really do not take care of their employees like Costco does, for example. And you can see that in how the employees feel on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
And so it's like, look, if we take care of ourselves and we take care of our employees, that will make a difference for the customers, for the product, for
Hmm.
the productivity. And so we need to come away from that scarcity model of I'm going to cut corners as much as I can to make a profit, and instead
Hmm.
be more like Costco or IIN, in that I'm going to
Hmm.
take care of my employers, or sorry, my employees, and my employees are going to take care of my customers and take care of the business. And
Right.
it'll there'll be a ripple effect here. And there is. And so I love that you illustrated that. Doris, it's been so good having you on the show. Is there anything else that you'd like to share to wrap up today's interview?
Well, it's actually been such a pleasure. I don't have much to say except, I just want to encourage people out there to know that there's hope. Sometimes the hope is maybe a glimpse of a small light. Sometimes it's a big one, but there is something out there that can keep you going. Whether it is to build your own business, whether it's to get better, there's always a way, to get there. And you can find that way through more education, through working with a health coach, whatever it is that is your path. Just find it and do it. There's no
Mm-hmm.
reason to wait anymore. There's just no reason, you know.
Absolutely. The best thing we can do is take action. Now, Doris, you still take clients. So if anyone
That is correct.
resonated with you, which I'm sure they did, we're going to make sure that your email address is in the show notes of today's podcast at learntohealth.com. And
Great.
it's Doris at gethealthysoon.com. I know that you don't have your website up, but you still,
Right.
that's and I love the name of your business, Get Healthy
Thank you.
Soon, especially for those, like you said, who, maybe haven't found hope and
Yeah.
they've been sick for so long. Get Healthy Soon. I love the soon. It's like, listen,
Yes.
it's happening. It's happening. Let's get
Yeah.
on it. And
Yeah.
so Doris at gethealthysoon.com, and I'll make sure that's also in the show notes of the podcast so that those who resonate with Doris and want to chat with her and see if working with her as a coach would be great, then please reach out to her. She doesn't bite.
That's right, I do not. I'm actually quite nice.
I
And
bet.
and there's no pressure, I just want people to not feel there's pressure. We can talk, we could see, and just so you know, as I have told clients over the years, just because maybe you and I don't connect doesn't mean you're never gonna connect with another health coach or a counselor or a doctor. Just find that person. You're not meant to be friends with everybody, doesn't mean you're meant to be working with every single person. You
Hmm.
just find the person that, connects well with you, and there's that, hope that you can
Hmm.
find. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then for those who, been thinking about becoming a health coach, do it. Call IIN. You could even ask to speak to Doris to
Yes.
enroll.
That'd be great.
Absolutely. And make sure you mention my name or the Learn True Health podcast, because there's a wonderful discount that comes with anyone that comes from my podcast. And I was really happy that IIN set that up for my listeners, because so many of them have enrolled, because I believe people who are listening to my show are on that path. Either they're healing their own body, and then they
Mhm.
realize that they're so motivated by this that they want to go on to help others.
Right.
And I've said this before, I would have taken IIN's program for myself alone, just for the personal growth alone.
Absolutely.
It's like, for me, it was a personal transformation, and then this added bonus that I can also help others. So I
Right.
thought that was really cool. Doris, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure too. Thank you for having me, Ashley.
Hello, True Health Seeker. I have a very exciting announcement. I have spent over a year, I've spent about 14 months collecting all of my information that I use with my clients for ending anxiety, and I created an online program. I'm very excited about it. We just launched it. And for you, for free, I have a webinar where I teach you 2 powerful mind tricks for removing anxiety, ending worry, and controlling fear so it stops controlling you and your life. In my free webinar, you will learn what causes anxiety and how to stop it, the science behind the mind-body connection, overcoming fear of public speaking, getting unstuck, ending that fear of things not working out, ending procrastination and overwhelm, and feeling excited, grounded, and calm instead of fear and worry. I have so much to teach you in my free webinar, and I'm really excited for you to come check it out. Go to freeyouranxiety.com/webinar. That's freeyouranxiety.com/webinar, or look in the show notes of today's podcast and you'll see the link there, so you can jump into the webinar and learn all these wonderful, powerful tools that will end your anxiety and create excitement and happiness instead. Go to freeyouranxiety.com/webinar and sign up now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next live webinar.